Hi, welcome to Fretboard Frolics. I'm your host, Mikhal Caldwell. We've been away for a long time, but we haven't forgotten about you or the occurrences that happened on this instrument, the guitar, in case some of you guys thought it was a banjo or something. We'll talk about everything. We're back for 94 and for the rest, I guess, too. We'll be back with more on the guitar, more on the show, more on what's been going on, and all of that after these brief messages.
Have you ever wanted to make your own TV show? Well, with public access, you can. Here at TCI Cablevision of Oakland County, we offer free classes in single camera, editing, and studio production to help you get started on your first program on Channel 52. These workshops are open to individuals, nonprofit organizations, and civic groups in the franchise area. So what are you waiting for? Call the public access studio nearest you.
Hey, how you doing? I'm back. First of all, I'd like to tell you guys that we haven't forgotten about you, and Fretboard Frolics is still a part of your life if you happen to play this instrument, and even if you don't play this instrument. We've been gone off the air for so long, I possibly should explain to you exactly what this show is about in case you're just tuning in for the first time, which is very possible. And for some of you old diehards, I want to tell you what's happened. I'll start with that first. We've been having a run of incredibly bad luck over the last year. Our producer and my main homeboy on guitar, Dave Lungu, has suffered like tremendous injuries on the back. So what we had to do was we found Oscar and we sent him to the bionics lab. So now we got bionic producer. He should be good for the rest of his life. He's just jumped over the building 4 or 5 times and he's playing guitar with 47 necks on him. So I'm pretty sure he's back to normal. Myself, I've been just trying to play guitar and figuring out some new things so I could come back and try to twist your mind till you grow dreadlocks, even if you got real fine hair, with new ideas about guitar. The last guest that we've had on the show, it's been so long ago, was Tommy Tedesco. I hope you guys watched that show and learned something from it. Now, to explain a little bit about what Fretboard Frolics is about to some of you rookies, it's about the ideology of music. We just happen to use guitar as a tool. We've always functioned under the belief if you were a doctor, or you were a lawyer, or you were a plumber, or even a carpenter, or an electrician, you would have to go somewhere and study to attain a level of proficiency at those particular skills, or the career, we'll call it, as you've chosen to do. Guitar playing is a craft. It's, being a musician is an art form, and it's also a career move. It's once you make the decision, the conscious decision to become a musician and accept the responsibility that goes along with that, you can at that point start to know that the rest of your life will be very, very miserable trying to figure out different things to do to become a creative and responsible musician. On this show, we've always been focused towards obtaining not anybody else's skill level, not playing like Yngwie, not playing like Diamond Darrell, not being Wes Montgomery, not being Joe Pass, although that would be cool, not being McLaughlin, not being anybody except for yourself, but obtaining ideas from some of these great players. Over the last 6 years, and it has been on 6 years, we're going on the 7th year, can you guys believe that? David and myself have had the pleasure of bringing to you some of the greatest guitar players on the planet. And in doing so, we've also managed to run across some of the greatest musicians on the planet. We've had people on our show, time to brag a little bit, like John McLaughlin, Larry Coryell, so many people I almost can't even remember all of them. We've had a bunch of guests, very, very popular, from Scott Henderson to Al Di Meola to Michelangelo to Paul Gilbert to Billy Sheehan to David Chastain to you name it, we've probably had them on the show. The idea that all these players have focused on over the years is to be yourself. Tony McAlpine said, as a matter of fact, on an interview on the show, that some of the greatest players in the world are in their basement because they don't venture out enough. We had the legendary Michael Schenker on the show, who proved a point that astounded me. You don't necessarily have to be the most skilled academic musician to produce music. Music is still an art form. We always try to keep that in mind when we're working on the show. You hear a lot of terms. Hopefully you'll mess around and learn something if you listen. You may even accidentally learn something. God forbid, man. If you do, don't send hate mail here. Send it to Dave, the bionic guy jumping across 8 Mile, 9 Mile. But anyway, you mess around and learn something. Music can also be very, very fun. But as I said in the beginning to say, when I was telling you about being a lawyer and being a doctor, you have to really understand what you're doing. You could go to Rome and live and have a great time eating food and walking around and looking at the city. But to really function there, you need to speak the language. We've always worked under the belief that a musician should understand music. You don't necessarily have to understand music to be an artist, but it always helps, If you're going to be a mathematician, it's nice to know addition and multiplication before you start trying to do trigonometry and all that kind of stuff. So what we want to think about is we like to learn things from the show. We like to learn about the instrument, how it functions, and theory that applies really, really good to our instrument, which is all theory. We don't limit ourselves to the most popular form of music at the time. Like, for example, I think right now the big craze is like funk grunge. Everybody calls everything funk or grungy or something, you know. David and myself just came back from Seattle. We got swamp foot and we had to come home. No, but everybody's on these big crazes about trends. Hopefully this show will help you to rise above the insanity of going with trends and to become a musician. Because if you notice, no matter what the trend is, music is always music. The A that Beethoven played is the same A note that McLaughlin played, is the same note that, I don't know, the guys in Soundgarden play. Everybody, you know, A is A. Iggy Pop's band plays A. You know, what I'm saying is a note is a note. The artistic thing about a particular note is the artist who uses it. Now, today we're going to go into some very, very basic things. That was a cool speech, wasn't it? Today we're going to go into some pretty cool things about playing suspended chords. I almost feel like I have an obligation to start over again and start explaining from the very beginning about suspended chords and the different tonalities. But let's hope that a lot of you guys have a working knowledge of some of this stuff. What I'm going to do, David and myself are going to go through some real painstaking maneuvers when necessary. If I mention things that I'm sure a lot of you guys aren't familiar with that may have just caught onto the show, some of you old-timers just go and get a sandwich or something while I talk to these guys for a minute. Some of the things that have been going on for a while, we've discussed all kind of stuff like polytonal pivoting, harmonic regeneration. If it sounds like I just landed from Mars, that means you didn't see some of these shows. Also, different harmonizations, harmonic music concepts. We've been over so many different things that you may hear me use terms that may sound unfamiliar. If it's at all possible, we'll go back through the Fretboard Frolic archives and maybe pick out little excerpts of certain times I explain things to avoid me having to do it again. You'll see the show change constantly because David is insane now since he's bionic, so he's got these million ideas. He wanted me to hang upside down and play guitar with my hair today, but luckily we fought him off and we're able to go about it this way. We're going to talk about things like suspensions. Let it suffice to say that those of you who do know what intervals are, and I don't want to go back to the beginning to bore you guys again, so I won't do it, but please try to get a study habit happening. We'll go through this eventually. Just let me groove today with you. Suspensions are things that are based on the second note or the fourth note, which is the same as the ninth note and the 11th note. I really feel like I should explain this, but I'm going to go over it so you can call me a bad instructor today and stone my car or something. We're going to talk about how these things help music to become a little bit more free, since we know that they occur on the second note and the fourth note. These are the only consistent intervals in music. You hear people use terms like perfect fifth. The fifth is only perfect when it's utilized in a major capacity against a major third, or if it's utilized in a minor capacity against a minor third, a flat third. So what you have here is if you change the fifth and raise it, then it becomes augmented. If you flatten the fifth, it becomes diminished. So obviously the fifth is not a consistent interval. All you have to do is move it around. It becomes a whole totally different tonality. Some of these have even uneven interval counts, which is an odd number, such as a 9 or a 7 or an 11 or something like that. Even interval structure would be 8 notes in the diatonic music system, and those would be the root, followed by the root, which would be the 8 and the 1, and everything in between that would give you the spice or the flavor of that particular tonality. I just wound up explaining it anyway, didn't I? We're going to talk about how we can get some things to. I notice everybody nowadays seems to play directly on the fret, like, we don't want to miss this note. What note is this? Let's play on the D. How do you know it's a D? Because this is where, so I'm going to play it like this. We're going to do some different things today, just different things every day. I'm going to play on some flat notes or sharp notes, depending on how you choose to view them. That's another thing we always talk about in the show. Music is created by the artist. This is the artistic part of the academic part, if that made any sense to you at all. You can interpret music any kind of way you want. Just like life, you can interpret life any way you want. You can choose to make your life real pleasurable, or you can choose to make it real miserable, depending on what you want to look at something as being like. Music has the same qualities because music is nothing but a reflection of the life of the person who's playing it. Even when they're trying to imitate somebody else, they're only giving you their imitation of that person. So music is like a very, very honest form. If you're true to it, it'll be true to you. But if you're not true and faking it at all, it will come through. Let's look at this. Let's talk about what a suspended chord will sound like in, for example, D flat. I really like this chord a lot. It sounds really cool to me. I like the way it rings. We're going to do some movements around this chord, include some octaves, include some two-note double stop things, some figures, which are nothing but notes that are separated by a fifth, root fifth. And we're going to also match up major things against minor things today. Just some basic warm-ups to get your head working, get your fingers working together with that. Let's look at one idea, one quick idea before we go to break here. You'll notice that I use a classical fingering a lot as opposed to a traditional fingering. I use a lot of classical fingerings because it makes it more accessible for me to start improvisation. Because I have this, I can use it for embellishments and stuff. Some of you guys that are familiar with playing jazz will already notice exactly what's going on with what I'm talking about here and how this works and how this will be very, very much an effective tool in your quest to learn how to improvise and to become a better player. This is one thing I wanted to discuss before we went to break. Some people even bar this so that you can improvise using this finger. But it's all the same chord. I want you to think about that, and we'll be back after these brief messages.
With the belief
that all people
have dignity,
worth,
and are entitled to the highest quality of life, Wellness Networks is committed to providing you with the facts on HIV, AIDS, and safer sex. Wellness offers the Michigan AIDS Hotline, support groups, community education, and now a teen hotline, where teens can talk to other teens and get the right answers about HIV, AIDS, and STDs. Call the Wellness Networks at 1-800-750-TEEN. Get the facts.
Hi, welcome back. We're going to start talking about how this stuff works, and I've really got some really, really exciting ideas I just came up with right now to explain to you. I really want you to see, number one, how I'm going to play around the fourth. Let's count up to the fourth in this particular incident here. I'm going to use a D flat. I've got some suspensions happening here. And I'm also playing a minor chord. Now, what you're going to notice is you're going to hear the fifth a lot. And I'm going to move up to the fourth of this D flat. Now let's just listen to the chord movement. So we're basically looking at D flat, G flat. But listen now to G flat with the suspension, still the same note suspended. Because these are the consistent intervals. Why? Because I'm moving from fourth to fourth. I'm just changing things by a fourth. No big deal. Unless, of course, I choose to look at G flat as my alternate root. I'll explain that too. That's another concept of harmonic regeneration and harmonic regeneration and polytonal pivoting. Those are things I mentioned before. A lot of you guys painstakingly went through that with me for like about 2 months. We talked about those things. And we will get back on them because they're still really cool ideas. But if I choose to look at this as my alternate root, then this becomes 1/5. Instead of this being what I'm playing the root here, moving it back a fourth. So we have something set up here that's going to work real nice. I've already talked about the 1, which is the root. The 5th, we've mentioned, is not a perfect interval. That's why I mention all this stuff. I always have a way of saying stuff and then going back and letting you see what's happening later. So hopefully you'll see that effect happen in the show. We're going to look at this as a root. We have 2 different roots. However, we can look at this as an alternate root going to 5th, or we can look at this as the root, natural root, going back a 4th. Now, let's look at how these things, since we have a 1, 4, 5, we could look at this as we have a suspended chord, but I'm trying to give you another variation of that. Let's just look at like we were talking about, suspensions. And listen how these notes ring out when I suspend the B and the E behind this. Now let's make it a little bit beautiful and use something like a major 7 chord, a flat 5th away. We talked about making the 5th a flat 5th away from our alternate root. We talked about using a major field. Now this is really nice. I like to do the most bizarre things I can think of. For example, I'm going to give you a suspended tonal condition superimposed over a minor tonality. And also, I'm going to give you the illusion of playing diminished, but I'm actually going to play a major 7th chord in the flat 5 position of the scale. I'll explain to you how all this stuff relates at the very end of the show. If you notice, I went flat 5. So it'll be. Why is it not harmonic major with a flat 5th? You're saying, wow, it could be a major 3rd. It could be a minor 3rd. But we haven't even designated a 3rd. We just played a 1, flat 5. So I'm implying I'm giving you the implications that, hey, I'm really thinking about doing something diminished. There's no other thing that you can possibly think at this point. Why is there nothing else you can think? And I'm the guy talking about options, 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 because we're making a logical assumption. Why am I calling this a logical assumption? Okay, number one, we're going to back up. Our natural root, if I backed up our natural root, a half step, I'm going to have a major 7. This is why this is going to look at diminished. Please bear with me here. Natural root, a half step back is a major 7. Alternate root, across between the underneath the 4th, above the natural 5th is a flat 5. So actually we can look at this as a flat 5 or a major 7. Now, the reason I chose to look at it is in this diminished capacity. Dave, I'm going to need some graphics here. If you look at a major scale, it has a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All these are natural. We're considering this to be in the key of C, okay? Now, if we look at a diminished scale, we're going to see that we have, not only are there going to be more numbers, which is called the uneven interval count I mentioned earlier. See, we're already falling back into my master plan, getting all this stuff that I mentioned earlier out. Okay, you'll see that you have an uneven interval count. Also, along with that, you'll notice that in a diminished scale, you have a 1, a natural 2nd, depending on if it's American or German. You have a flattened 3rd. You have a natural 4th, proving once again that the 4th in a minor, against a minor 3rd, even in its diminished capacity, is still the same 4th that you have when you're working in major, which lets us know that this is one of the suspended intervals, and also the 2, you'll notice, is exactly the same. Now we have a flat 5. Then we have a natural minor 6. Why do we have a natural minor 6? Because a minor 6 is the same as a double flatted 7. That's what we got going on there, okay? We also have a double flatted 7. You see what I mean? We have a double flat 7. We have a natural 7, and then we have the octave 8. You'll notice that there's 2 7s in here. You say, what is this guy? Is he dyslexic or does he stutter? No, actually, this is the way you have an uneven interval count. This is a symmetrical scale. It's actually diatonically correct, but it's just a symmetrical scale. It's still a diatonic scale, believe it or not, but it adds an interval because of its uneven interval count. We have to have some sort of resolution point. You'll notice that the natural 7 in this position will also serve, when I'm playing here as this root, the natural 7th here will also work as a flat 5 if I go to my alternate root or back up a 4th. So now you see why I chose to look at this. I tell you, it's only one way you can look at this, just like diminished, because you have 2 roots to choose from, and if you go right in between those 2, you have a diminished setup there. That's all you have. That's all you can look at it as. So now I explain why I could tell you a natural 7th in one tonal condition or in one key center. If you move towards alternate key center, can be looked at as a flat 5. You understand how it works now, so you don't think I'm insane or something, or been sniffing too many fumes here in the studio from insulation or something. So now let's go to what we have talked about. Since we understand that I'm going to give you the implications, I'm going to play something diminished inside of this major thing, or something major, pardon me, inside of this diminished thing. How am I going to make that sound convincing? I'm just going to play any major chord? No, this is why I chose to play a major 7th chord. I have my root, I have my major 7, my major 7 and my major 3rd. So this is giving me what I need right here. So now I got a major 7 played on the major 7th or the flat 5th of my alternate key center inside of a diminished capacity, which makes it legitimate. It gives us its legitimacy right there. Some of these things are different to think about, but now some of you guys that are more experienced or have watched the show before know exactly where I'm going with this. This sets you up. I'm always trying to think of a way to give me freedom to improvise. You know, freedom to improvise is, God, it's nothing like that. That's God's gift to musicians, you know, being able to just say, I can go from here, you know. Now we've been taken away from the basic idea that we must play diminished. We can play major stuff because we can access it through the major seventh, and the major seventh chord is right here, giving us a major third, plus another natural fifth, so we can just start playing natural stuff, plus the natural seventh, so we can move around now. We got an option to go. Again, we have this. And we have access to both root points. And we've also started playing intervals that are major and minor inside of both key centers. So we got a lot of things that are going on for us right now. Now, my next move is to play something totally contrasting. I'm going to move up to the fourth of my alternate key and play a minor 7 chord. Now, why am I going to play a minor 7 chord? Let's look a little bit, use logic. If this is a major 7, a half step back from the major 7th is a minor 7. And so I'm going to take access. Since I was playing a major 7 chord here, I'm going to play a minor 7 chord here. So what I'm doing is I'm changing key centers, and I'm also using my fourth. So now I'm playing the minor 7 on top of a fourth, which is probably one of the most famous chords you hear in jazz, a minor 7 flat, suspended, minor 7 suspended 4. You hear that chord quite a bit. It gives me access to pretty much everything I want to do. The whole ideology behind what I just did and what I'm showing you right now is to be able to access to play whatever you want. I stress this all the time. You guys will get enough of me saying this. But to be able to play whatever you want is the whole idea of playing. Not to have to play a certain thing inside a certain key. Not to wind up playing what we call licks. Or, I hate that word, you know. Because everything you play has a reason. It's logical. It should make some sense. It should be valuable to you. It's an expression of you. You know, music is really different. Once you plug this thing in and put it in the amplifier, you give it to the world. Once it comes through the speakers, you can't take it back, you know. So you got to make sure what you say is what you mean. You can't be lying, you know. You got to be telling the truth all the time, because once you put it out, you can't go back and say, I didn't mean that. You know, it's real, it's out. There's no way you can retract it. So you got to be sincere. As a musician, you have a commitment to really understand this and to make it legitimate to people. Music can change everything. Music can make a bad day a good day. Music can also make a good day a bad day. Music is a very, very powerful force. So it's a responsibility that goes along with it. You got to remember, it's people that are listening to what you're saying, and their whole life for that moment is grooved into what you're doing. So, you know, got to treat them kind of cool. Let's go back to the idea here. You'll hear how this sounds really nice the way it rounds out. The major 7 against the minor 7. I was showing David the song. I just put this together a little while ago. It's something I was thinking about, probably because I'm an improvisation freak. I play the most weird stuff in the world, at least to me, you know. Music is only, I've said this all the time too, there's only one kind of music on this planet. That would be earth music, you know. And unless you play something that comes from Mars or something, it's all your music, you know, music from other countries, whatever. It's all your music, semitonal music, microtonal music, all the different kind of systems that are available to man. They all belong to you. Let's look at this and see how we can make it sound rhythmatically correct for the Western ear. Let's put a little rhythm to it. Make it sound Eastern. So many different things you can do with this particular feel. I like the way it feels. Let's just play it and see what we can do as far as fills over the top. I did this whole thing, the whole idea of this lesson came to me just before we were getting ready to tape this. David and myself, I'm always messing around with guitar while David is trying to figure out new ways to torture me on this set. Don't move, don't move, don't move. And I hold this little card, and then we get all the lights right and stuff. But anyway, I'm sitting here, and I was playing this line, and David is pretty used to hearing me play weird stuff. And I played this line, and he was like, oh, you must have had some sort of upset stomach or something when you played that. It sounded really, really rumbly, grumbly, stupid. Then he heard it again, and the beauty of the line actually hit him, you know. It was so different, so unique, because it harmonizes with the alternate key. Let's listen to this, because I want you to see that there are no limitations in music. Open your mind, open your ears, and just listen to this. Listen to it with it, instead of hearing somebody go, or instead of hearing someone, instead of hearing all that kind of stuff, saying, wow, that's really cool, man. Let's listen to something a little bit different. Listen to how this approaches your ear. It has like a oriental twinge to it, but it works real good against the alternate key. I really think that's really cool. All it is a blues line, but over the top of that suspended chord, I can play it anywhere, and it sounds really, really neat. Once again, let's listen to how it approaches your ear. It makes you feel kind of like, ugh, get that off me. It's kind of neat. A lot of different variations you can do if you open up your mind and hear different possibilities. Today's improvisational thing is really wide open. One of the coolest things I can think of right now, we're living in like one of the most cool times for music. A lot of borders that separated different things are being broken racially, musically. Everything is moshing together, so really cool. Moshing. Everything is going together so cool, you know. Take advantage of where you are. Take advantage of the music around you. Take advantage of the world around you and the cultures around you and everything around you, and just drink it up with the rest of life. Think about what we just did, and we'll be back with some more mind-bending things right after these brief messages.
This bag saved the driver. This bag saved the passenger. Please give blood again.
If you have any questions or comments for Fretboard Frolics, feel free to send them to us here at Fretboard Frolics, 344 West 9 Mile, Ferndale, Michigan, 48220. Hey, welcome back. Like I said, I hope you guys messed around today and accidentally learned something, and for those of you who are really trying, that was even cooler. It's good to be back. That's one thing I want to say. That you guys who've been with us before that missed us, we missed you too, and we're here for a while. If you got any questions or comments, you know to always write, and we'll do our best to get something out to you. If we don't answer you personally, we'll answer you on this show. Look for some changes in our show. I hope you learned some things about improvisation. Hope I explained a little bit about what we're about. Hope I didn't bore you too bad, and I hope I gave you the incentive to, you know, really, really work hard. As the old line goes, for the last 6 years, I want you guys to work real hard. Think about what we did, practice like crazy, make the dots dance on it. For me and Dave Lungo, peace. See you next week.